top 7 lessons in the past 10 months of the Active Life podcast. We could have gone more, but I think these are pretty good ones.
Yeah. Look, we've been doing this for a few months now. We have a handful of episodes under our belt. And I think one of the things that's been impactful for us just as a company and running this podcast, being a piece of that, is the self-reflection piece.
What I like about it is that in addition to our own self-reflection, all of the conversations we have with our students, with people in our own lives, with people that are not affiliated with us at all, it all comes back to what people are getting on this episode and what people are reporting finding helpful. Mm-hmm. So this is very much a collaborative organism here that's taught us some powerful stuff.
Yeah, and I think that we can take this method of self-reflection, and as a coach, as a trainer, you can implement this in your system, your business. And I think it's helpful to go through these points of reflection when you're developing anything or delivering anything.
Let's dive into them.
First lesson. This one was one that you came up with.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Curse less.
Yeah, curse less. One of the things that I wrestled with in the beginning was what's the appropriate dose of that? I like it. I think it's fun. But I started to realize that cursing is like spices in food. Little bit of the right amount in the right place.
This is pretty good.
Yeah. Handfuls whenever, not so good. No one's eating it. It doesn't taste good anymore. It's noxious.
Get me out of here.
Right. So I think I'm dosing better.
Okay.
I'm dosing better.
That's a good one.
Jerry Seinfeld described that the word fuck is like a Corvette. And Louis C.K., who grew up poor in Boston, was like, hell yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's awesome. And then he realized, oh, yeah, Jerry Seinfeld grew up like in Long Island with Porsches and stuff. To him, it's like a lousy little flashy redneck car. But there's a lot of power behind the word. It's just like revving a big engine. And once in a while, it's cool here and there, and it is an enhancement. But when it's a staple of speech, it's a little different.
Yeah, I can see it becoming a detractor.
So if you find that you swear a lot, I would start thinking about it like a strong spice that you want to use in the right amount to enhance things here and there, not as every fifth word.
Yeah. It can become a good pattern interrupt.
Yes.
Is what it can become. It can be something to focus on whatever comes before or after. But if you're using it all of the time,
not so good.
It dilutes.
Not so good. Good lesson.
Okay. Slow down.
Is this one that you struggled with at all? I know I said this one too. I'm just curious your take on slowing down.
Maybe, I guess I would have to go back and listen to episodes. Depends on the topic.
I meant particularly in speech. And this podcast has been a great platform for me to practice delivering what the two of us want to say in a way that people are going to hear it well and be able to digest it in real time. I think I have had the tendency to talk fast, to talk more complexly than is helpful, maybe to me and to the people listening. And slowing down has been a really good way for me to make sure I'm choosing only the words that are helpful. And I think that if you find yourself as tending to talk fast, you can give yourself the opportunity to slow down, even 20%, create a little more space. You don't have to worry about the space being taken away from you.
Yeah. That's a great lesson. I mean, I've talked to the professionals, and you've worked with Miles from Speak Well.
Yep.
And there's another good book out there, Jefferson Fisher's book, The Next Conversation. One of the rules that he has in that book is let your breath be the first word, especially when you're in a challenging conversation. I think often we just want to fill space with sound as human beings, because there might be, especially when we're having a difficult conversation, and a difficult conversation has levels, right? There's degrees of difficulty in conversation, but intentional pauses can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I utilize very often in the discovery and the consultative process, is just letting something sit, because you might find that the person actually isn't done speaking. They have more things, and if you were to just give them the 3 to 5 seconds, they're going to start to fill that space with additional context and information that's helpful for you in a consultative process. And then I was listening to one of the Diary of a CEO podcasts. He had like Hermosi, it was 3 of them. It was about making $100 million. Hermosi, Cody Sanchez, and I forget the other guy's name, but I'm listening to his book. and they were talking about rate of speech. And it's like the sweet spot is somewhere between 150 and 170 words per minute that somebody can actually absorb and hear you. So going back to like in Lifted, one of the things that I help with the team in the flagship is think about speaking at 80% speed.
Wait, how do you count your words? I'm thinking about apps and stuff now. That like, how do I measure this?
I don't know. I mean, you could probably use an app. I'm sure that there's an app for it.
I'll figure it out.
But slowing yourself down, like a tactical takeaway from this is just think about speaking at 80% speed, especially when you're early on and when you're teaching something, when you're in a consultative process, slow yourself down.
For people who play music, if you think about sheet music, there was a guy when I was in my 20s, I'm in my mid, soon to be back half of my 30s. And he was a 60-year-old gentleman from Hungary that I grew to love and respect very much. He was a really, really spiritually oriented dude. And he runs an elite piano restoration business, and he doesn't like or listen to music. And he described to me how silence is like the white sheet, and our words are like the notes. And if it's just notes, there's no music. It's just cacophony. But the white notes placed and spaced appropriately on white are how you get beautiful music. And he was describing how most people fail to appreciate the power of silence. And silence holds and then allows you to showcase and stand out all of the things that you want to say. So thinking about the space being valuable and powerful in and of itself, not just the next thing, was helpful.
Yeah. That's huge. That's a huge lesson. And when you're in those conversations with leads or prospects or even clients, there's something to, like, people feel energy, and they can feel it when you're getting a little bit nervous and you start talking a little bit faster and you're like, hey, we're going to go through this thing and this thing. And then, we're going to go through the assessing phase and the develop phase. They're like, whoa, you're clearly nervous. Now I need to perk my ears up and I'm going to get into that sympathetic, and I'm also going to be nervous. So you creating that space allows you to dictate and determine to a degree the energy in those conversations.
For those of you guys who were worrying about the Hungarian guy, I used to refer to him as Hungarian Daddy.
I think everybody was very worried.
Yeah, they were worried about that, so glad to put you guys at ease.
All right, so we're slowing down. Next lesson that we learned is 80-20. Focus on the topic and the fun.
Yeah. We messed around in the beginning with where should we take these things? How off the rails is appropriate? What does it mean to just fool around freely as it comes up and have that still be something that's worth listening to? And I don't think it took us too long to decide we should focus on doing something productive for most of this. And then to, again, pepper it with some looseness or fun or a little more color or texture is okay, but let's keep this thing on the rails and moving forward in the direction that people have signed up to listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cody Sanchez talked about that in that same podcast episode that I was talking about, where people really need to make the decision, and she was referring to their social media presence. Right? They need to make the decision, is this going to be an entertainment platform or an education platform? And for us, we've noticed, and as a company, we've always been, it's education. There are so many, if we're thinking about differentiators in the marketplace, there are so many Gym Bro podcasts out there already. We don't need to be another Gym Bro podcast. We're going to be education heavy, and it should be fun and enjoyable to listen to, but people aren't tuning in to hear us talk about bullshit.
Yeah. There should be stuff that you can come here to take away and apply to make something about your business better the moment after you finish listening to the episode.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great transference into the value proposition for a coach and a trainer. Right?
What do you mean by that?
If we were to just think about it as an 80-20 rule.
Oh,
right?
I see.
80% of what we're going to do together is focused on the thing that they're here for, and 20% of it should be enjoyable and it should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense to me.
The power of addressing one person was the fourth lesson.
Yeah. So I had heard a lot over the years about speaking to one person as an avatar. And it never really hit me or dawned on me what the power of doing that is. And what I realized is, while we're all unique, special little creatures, we're also pretty damn similar. And there are these big clumps of things that we have in common that we could agree on for the most part, which is pretty cool. And so what that means is, when you're talking to a population of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and you talk to one person about their unique situation, you're really talking to a lot of people. And the more clearly you can talk about one person in that situation, the more personal you can make it, the more real you can see and feel the story that this person is living. And the more they can say, this is so much like my experience that it's very important for me to be tapping in and listening to this and taking action on this, because I feel very understood by this. This is really related to my experience. And what else do we have besides our own experience?
Yep.
And if we can do that effectively, we're going to help a lot of other people feel seen and heard and understood in a way that their experience is legitimate and important and worth addressing. So that was really helpful to me. And I think that recently we've done some episodes where we talked about a conversation I had with one person. And in describing this person very completely, a lot of other people found resonance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and transferring this to business, one of the big key logs that we had at the flagship was the ICA exercise, the ideal client avatar, identifying the 1 to 3 people that 90% of our messaging was going to be focused on. What problem did they have? What solutions have they tried? What worked? What didn't work? And our messaging now is meant to speak to one of those 3 people almost all of the time. And I think this is where a lot of coaches and trainers find themselves getting lost. And I'll speak from my perspective coming from the CrossFit space, right? This is for everybody. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that CrossFit made as a brand was they started off as the Forging Elite Fitness. And then through COVID, I still remember the videos that they were putting out of the water jugs, the 70-year-old getting off of doing the at-home workouts. And that created a tremendous amount of confusion in the marketplace. Because you can also, through that methodology, you can also help that person. But that's not your bread and butter. And it turned off a lot of people who had come to them as a sport. And it confused the marketplace. And we've seen the downward spiral of CrossFit since then. And I think one of the biggest problems that they created for themselves, and I certainly did in my businesses as well, was that confusion. And that's by trying to talk to everyone and positioning yourself as the solution for everyone. If you can position yourself as the solution for one person, to your point earlier, you're going to find the people with that problem who are interested and inspired in your potential solution. That's the power of speaking to one person.
Yep, I'm good on that. I appreciate that.
Done is better than better.
What does that mean to you?
Well, let's go back to when we started the podcast. We didn't know exactly what we were going to aim for, the theme that we wanted to hold, the energy that we wanted to have. So we just started putting shit out. We just started creating content, creating episodes. Some of them resonated, some of them did not. But we were the feedback loop was so much tighter because we started doing it. And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck in their businesses from, again, experience through mentoring, is they want to have the thing be perfect before they begin to execute on it. And imperfect action overwhelms a perfect plan.
Yeah, it does.
So that's what it means to me. The done is better than better, because we could have sat and we could have ideated for weeks and for months about how to make this perfect. And let's say that we do that for 3 months before we ever record. We've lost 3 months of feedback, and it's still going to take us 1 to 3 months to learn where we actually belong, where we start imperfectly. We learn those lessons over the first 1 to 3 months. We are where we want to go much faster than we would have been if we spent 3 months creating the perfect episode.
I think the primary fear that people face in starting, and this is certainly one that I've found myself true for me in the past, I think that people fear the consequence of something not being perceived as good. And whether that's by a close friend or a partner or the marketplace with a product. I think that people have this fear that they have one shot, and there's going to be this intense negative backlash of negative feedback and chastisement, and I'm moving on from you and I'm never considering you worthy of consideration again. I think that's the fear that people have, that they have one shot to mess it up, and if they fail, it's utter rejection, and that's all there is. But there's a lot of evidence that that's not true. And that evidence, I think, for people who are dealing with perfectionism and a sense of, I'm using the word because I've been there, a sense of cowardice around starting, I think the evidence that all of this is redeemable, and people will decide whether or not what they see is good. And if you do something pretty lousy one time, and then you put something better in front of people, maybe they'll be trepidatious and they'll ask twice. But if you put something good in front of them a third time and then a fourth time, they're going to start paying attention. They're going to say, all right, someone's turned their act around. I can get behind this. People want what's good for them. People aren't going to ignore gold in their hands if they believe it's actually gold, and they could see and feel and taste and bite that it is, right? So the idea that you can be just courageous and do it while you're afraid, you're going to get more from doing it in a way that doesn't land than you're ever going to get from thinking about how to do it well, because it's not ever going to be good until someone says it is, not when you've decided you've planned it appropriately. It's going to be good when a bunch of people say this was great, and your planning doesn't necessarily make it great.
Yeah, an example that came to my head was with the person who will decide down the road that this might be the right thing. Is just, if you're the coach, the trainer listening to this, have you ever had somebody who came to you and decided not to work with you, and then you reconnected with them 6 months, 1 year, 2 years later, and you were the right type of people to be working together, and you enrolled that client, you started working with them, you started helping them? That could be for a lot of reasons. One of them being that who you were as the coach trainer at the time wasn't the person that they believed could help them. And now you are. And their problem stack and the solution that they desired to solve those problems wasn't in alignment with what you offered then. But it is now.
Yep.
Like, we all grow, we adapt, we evolve, we change. And to think that just because you had a consultation with somebody 2 years ago, that they're now not the right type of person to work for you, is foolhardy. Because you've changed, they've changed. You never step in the same river twice. You're not the same person, it's not the same river. This is an opportunity for you to be like, to look back and reflect upon, hey, I'm the right person to help this person. Where I was 2 years ago might not have been. But there is a path forward now. And it only came because of the action that you took over the last 2 years to learn all the things that you learned to become the type of person now who can actually help.
Yeah, I agree with that. What's next?
Most people make decisions based on what they think a handful of people will tolerate or want.
This one's the hardest one for me. It just costs me the most energy to think about. It's just so central to what I'm doing every day. Yeah, so what I see so many times a week are people who want something, and they want to venture to do work that's purposeful for them, that's exciting to them, and that would give them a life that they're happy with. And they are utterly convinced that the only way they're going to have anything is if they compromise on what they want in order to keep a small handful of people reasonably happy. I'm going to give some concrete examples of this. If there's a coach or a trainer or a practitioner that we have met who wants to leave their corporate gig or leave their employee position somewhere and they want to start their own thing, and we ask them simple questions about, well, what are you going to do about this, or what are you going to do about that? Pricing, service, or whatever, location. And they answer those things. And I know that that's not satisfactory to what they want. And I ask them, well, how did you come to that? They'll say, because that's what I'm pretty sure people are going to pay, or that's what people are going to be happy with, or that's the service that my clients right now have come to like. Well, your future might not involve the current clients that you have right now. And for some people, this is like earth-shattering. And they go, how could there be a future without the people that I currently have been working with? Well, if what you want is different from what the people you're currently working with want, are you going to choose prioritizing what those people want instead of what you want? You're like 32 years old, dude. Like, presumably you're going to be here for what, another 50 years at least? Are you going to prioritize what they want now over what you want for the next 50 years? Well, if the answer is yes, then first of all, we can't help you. And I'm sorry to hear that, because that means your basis of decision is one that you and everyone around you is going to suffer. If you're choosing naturally to prioritize what you want for yourself or your family, whoever it is, for the next 50 years, then that means that the basis of your decision has to be on what is going to create the future that you want, not on what these people right now are going to continue to be happy with. That's a tough Band-Aid to rip off for a lot of people.
Sure.
But there's nothing in the middle of those two things.
Yeah, it's the sunken cost fallacy for some people.
Can you say more on that for people who aren't familiar?
Yeah, you make the decision. You're making future decisions based on the time, the money, the energy that you've previously invested in a thing. So let's use the business as the example. Right? You've got a business that you wake up one day and you're no longer inspired by, or you're more inspired to help somebody else in a different way. Raise your prices, deliver a different service. But you have this story that you've created over the last 5 years that you've had the business and all of the clients that you've helped. And now you're like, well, if I make these changes, these people are going to leave. And I've spent all this time building this thing up, even though I'm not really happy with it, I'm unsatisfied. I've wasted all of this time, or I've spent all of this time. So I'm going to use that to make my future decision, rather than making the decision that you are most inspired by. That's the sunken cost fallacy. Everything that you've done up to this point is a cost that you've incurred, and you've sunk into the business or the decision or the choice, and you're going to use that as the determiner for how you make future decisions.
Well, there was something that you said in there that I think is another cost that's more acute that I think people are afraid of incurring, which is all of the people that are going to leave. That's what a lot of people are afraid of. What if they don't want to work with me anymore? Yeah, a good number of them won't.
Yeah.
What you want is different. If you decided that you've been a personal trainer for 5 years, you decided that you wanted to start being a plumber. Do you expect that they're going to continue to pay $300, $400, $500 a month for the 2 times a week you've been seeing them to do plumbing stuff in their house? Do you expect that they're going to want to pay that? Of course not. Why? Because it's not work. It's not what they're signed up for. But that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. What you want is not what they signed up for originally, and that's okay. So for people who are afraid of that, it means, but am I going to be able to find people that want what I want? You have to answer that for yourself. If you fundamentally do not believe that there is anyone who wants what you want to sell, you either need to challenge that belief by finding other people that are already selling it and buying it, or what you need to give up what you're saying you want.
Yeah, easy example from when I was doing more gym owner mentorship is simple example is a price raise. Or what would happen is that people would identify the gap between what they're charging now and what they would want to charge to make the living that they are satisfied with. And then maybe it's $100 price increase. We'll just use that as the easy anchor, right? You're charging $100 a month now. You want to go to $200 a month. You start going through this and you send the first email about a rate increase. And the loud minority emails you back, and it could be 10 people. Let's say you have 100 clients. 10 people is 10%. It's the minority. 10 people email you back about how this is crazy. How can you expect to raise this much? How can you expect me to pay for this? And then you make the decision, fudge. Well, maybe, you know what? Maybe we just do a $30 increase. Maybe we do a $50 increase. And you're starting to compromise on the life and the impact that you can make to placate the small minority, the loud minority. We're a negative bias as human beings. We're not factoring in the other 90 people who didn't say anything. But to your point, whenever we make these big changes like this, you have to come to the decision in yourself that you're okay losing some of those people, because what you're going to deliver is not what they signed up for. They might be coming for energy, atmosphere, community, excitement, and that's not the thing that you're inspired to provide, at least not at $100.
And what you stand to gain in the wake of that loss is at least doubly valuable to what you perceive you're going to lose.
Yes.
At least doubly valuable.
Yep. For you and for them.
Correct.
Next lesson that we took from this was the personal development piece. Is that personal development will take you much further in this business than a new programming philosophy.
Why do you believe that is?
I think a lot of coaches and trainers just think that they need whatever the next golden nugget of programming information is that's going to set them apart from the rest of the marketplace.
And also I found that personal development is often hard to sell because people don't want to buy it. People don't want to buy that they need to fundamentally change as a person. They want a tool that's going to make a quick change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a speed to it. And there's this misconception in the fitness space that the thing that separates you from the rest of the marketplace is your experience and the letters that you get to add at the end of your name by going through all of these certifications.
I think that when you consider how many trainers and coaches have shared something like, you know how it is. You're kind of like your client's therapist sometimes. You know, you're not really their therapist, but you listen to it. Well, there's something there. There's something there. And I'm not advocating that you behave as a clinical therapist would for someone. If you think that they need that, you should really refer that there. But there's a reason so many personal trainers say that. And the reason they say it is that when you have a long-term working relationship, what we all understand here in fitness is that it's often much more about the fitness. People aren't coming for a six-pack and losing 20 pounds and getting stronger for the six-pack and losing 20 pounds.
It's much less about the fitness.
It's much less about the fitness. It's about what they think that's going to make them feel when they have those things, or how they feel about themselves, or what they're going to be capable of doing or being or having. It's not about the feature of their fitness that is improved. It's about how that's going to serve them psychologically, emotionally, physically, etc. So there's a reason so many personal trainers and coaches say, you know how it is. You're kind of like your client's therapist sometimes. And the reason that's the case is because your clients are putting in work, digging up and uprooting and rearranging and transforming aspects of who they are as people in this process. The fitness isn't the biggest thing that changes when people commit to these kinds of processes in fitness for the first time. And when you're the person who has this trusting ground to stand on and you're leading someone across all these changes, they're going to confide in you things that are changing outside of just their waistline. And all of those things need to change if their waistline is going to change. The personal development is what creates the lasting change in people's fitness. And in the same way, the personal development is what is going to catapult who you are as a professional.
Yeah. Well, I think about it in the role of the coach and the trainer, right? In the story of the client, we're the guide. We're not the hero of the story. And novice coaches assume that they're the hero and they're there to save someone. Where the professionals and the mature coaches and trainers, they realize that they're the guide. And a piece of that is you going through the journey of developing yourself so that you can have some of those nuggets, you can have pieces of insight or wisdom that you can share with the client when they're going through these transformative journeys.
That's exactly what a guide's supposed to do. Share, as far as I see anyway, share wisdom and insight that can allow the person to self-advocate and say, all right, with this information and this light, what's the best thing for me to do? And then the decision to do it is where the growth is. And that the client owns forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they're doing it because they want to do it, not because you've told them to do it.
You know what I found? I found that my dog learns the fastest and the most permanently when he's been learning something new. And the less I can do to get him to realize what I want him to do, and the more of it is his decision to do it than me putting him in the position to do it, the quicker and the more permanent the learning is. So like I've watched new things that I've taught him when I gave him the space to make a decision and he did, and then I either praised or set a no around the boundary for whatever the decision was, because with a dog you set them up to fail intentionally so that they can learn a boundary. In the same way you set them up to win so that they can win something you want them to do. The more space they had to just make the decision and then you praise or reprimand whatever the decision was, the more permanent the thing is. And I think that people are very much the same way. When the decision was theirs to make and then the reward or the punishment happens on the other side, it's way more permanent. It's much more an installation into who we are.
Well, and it gives you more relatability when you go through this journey of personal development when you're working with clients, because there's a difference between lived experience and theory. And when you're talking about personal development, you're going to have a conversation with somebody about how they can become the type of person that gets X, Y, Z. If you've actually gone through this process, you have a greater depth and breadth of experience to be able to speak from. And you're also going to know, by the way, some of the pitfalls, so that you, as the guide, you can start to look 2 to 3 steps down the road. And you can say, hey, here's what might happen if you take this step. Here's what might happen if you take this step. Is this something that you're ready for? Versus being the coach or the trainer without that experience, being like, cool, so you're 50 years old. We need to start exercising more. We need to start waking up at a better time. We're going to revamp your nutritional habits. We're going to make sure that you're dealing with stress in a really good way. And you're going to need to dedicate 10 to 20 hours a week to this if you want to take it seriously. Do you want to take it seriously? And they're going to be like, yeah, but that's a lot of things. I'm 50 years old. I've got a family. I've got a mortgage. I've got a full-time job. I run my own company. We're not taking all of that experience into account when we're the novice coach and we're trying to administer the prescription. Where if you've gone through this difficult journey, you don't have to be 50 years old to get there. But if you've gone through this experience of trying to change or transform yourself, you're going to be able to say, hey, from my experience, here's the things that are going to be pretty difficult here. Maybe your social circle changes. Right? Is that something that you're ready for? Is that something that you want? Because if you have a core group of friends, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, if everybody in your friend group goes out on Friday, Saturday nights, gets drunk, if everybody in your friend group smokes, it's going to be very difficult for you to change your habits around that within that friend group. There has to be a willingness to decide, you know what, maybe these aren't the people that I'm going to spend the most time with over this period of transformation.
It's a very different conversation than the first one. What else is on that list?
That's our 7.
Those are 7 things that we learned over the past few months. So for those of you guys who haven't gone back the past few months or you're just logging on, those are some lessons that we got. Those are 7 things that you can do differently today. If any of those things are things you want to better understand, flip through the titles over the last 7-8 months or so, and I think you'll find some good stuff for yourself.
See you out there.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Active Life podcast. If you did, please head to wherever you listen and leave us that 5-star rating. It really does go a long way. 5 stars goes a long way. Please leave them. If you're interested in working with us as a coach, remember, we help coaches from around the world build fulfilling careers, working with clients they're inspired to help so they never have to worry about being able to pay your bills again. No one's ever going to ask you if you're going to get a real job when you work with Active Life. All you have to do, head into the show notes, click the link that you find there, download our curriculum. That will give you a feel for what it is going to take for you to be successful. A team member of ours will reach out to you to find out if it's a fit for us to work together. Till the next show, turn pro.